In this video, I'm going to be attempting to beat all of Halo 2 on Legendary while only using Covenant weapons. The thing about Halo 2 is for part of the campaign, you play as the Arbiter. So in the levels I play as the Arbiter, I'm going to be doing something a bit different. While I play as the Arbiter, I can only use weapons used by enemies in the level. So for example, in the level the Arbiter, at the beginning of the level, I can only use the Carbine and Needler. Later in the level, there are other guns that enemies use, like the Sword and Sentinel Beam. So when I kill them, I can use their weapons, but I can't use them before they are used against me. Hopefully, it makes more sense when we get to those levels. Here are the rules. 1. When I play as Cheif, I can't use any human weapons, including frag grenades. 2. Game difficulty will be set to Legendary for the whole playthrough. 3. When I play as Arbiter, I'm allowed to shoot weapons that enemies haven't used yet, but not damage with them. This is so I can progress in Sacred Icon. Besides this exception, I can only use weapons that enemies use. 4. Regardless of which character I play as, I can use any vehicle. Without this rule, I would have to do levels like Metropolis on foot, and I already did that. I'm not gonna lie, when I first started to consider doing this challenge, I almost didn't because I knew how little fun I was going to have doing Hangar 1 and 2 in Cairo Station with just plasma pistols and rifles. To start out, getting a gun wasn't all that hard. I waited for an elite to run in, and then laid him down. Then I got a plasma pistol from a grunt and ran past the rest of them. After fist fighting a red elite, I was at the first hangar. Because of 2 Marines distracting the Covenant, I was able to kill one of the elites. One of the Marines was putting in work. He threw a grenade that got a lot of the grunts, and when a new wave came in, he threw more. When the final wave spawned, I threw a plasma to deal some damage. I used my plasma rifle to kill the grunts, then was able to kill the white elite by using 2 plasma nades and some rifle shots. The last red elite was low enough from all the explosions that an overcharge plus rifle shots killed him. Some elite reinforcements came into the hangar, and I didn't want to have to use more plasma nades on them. The issue is, unless I'm shooting their shields, it feels like I'm tickling them, while their shots feel like I'm getting hit by a freight train, so I got folded a couple times. But with enough patience, I killed them. Before I went to Hangar 2, I picked up 2 Needlers, because I thought they would probably be my best non-nade weapon against elites in this level. Basically, all of its ammo went to killing one white elite, which was totally worth it because those guys are so tanky. The problem I always have in this hangar is more elites pull up before I can kill them, so I eventually just have like 6 elites chillin'. I try to focus on the elites first. I killed the blue one with plasma pistol and rifle and nothing else spawned. I went back to Hangar 1 to get new guns, and when I came back there were more elites. I was able to stick one with a plasma. Lucky for me, Hangar 1 was loaded with nades for me to use. I came back again, jumped up, and saw the final 3 elites also spawn in. I killed one of the white elites with an overcharge plus nade combo. The gold elite rushed me, but before he could kill me, I was able to cast a disappearing spell on him, or the game just glitched. I was able to kill the rest of the elites by fighting them one at a time. The way I did this was by stunning them with the plasma pistol, then sticking them. One of the white elites pulled out a sword. That meant I had a new addition to the weapons I could use. The sword made the next couple encounters not take a ton of death. In the space section, the elites get distracted really easily, which makes for easy sticks. The second space section was more difficult. The elite on the turret I could kill by just overcharging then shooting with the rifle. The other 2 were a lot more lethal with their 2 plasma rifles. After a lot of dying, I got a checkpoint where their brain stopped computing. The last 2 had no clue where I was, so I was able to sneak attack them. I had saved 4 plasmas for the final fight against all the elites guarding the bomb. Because of this, I got 4 free kills on red elites, then finished off the rest of them with my sword. Sing, 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 sing! Outskirts was such a fresh and welcome change of pace. I started by doing what most people do when playing this level on Legendary and jumping out of the map. I was kinda worried that I would need to kill some enemies for plasma nades, but the 2 spots where I thought I would need them, I could crouch jump up. A white elite and a grunt supplied me with weapons and grenades right before I entered the hotel. I used them on basically the only fight I had left to do in the level. This was because I planned on driving past everything. On the bright side, that only happened once. When I got into the tunnel, I wanted to swap to the Warthog. This Marine made me work for it. The rest of the level consisted of me holding down the W key to drive past everything until my screen went white. Continuing with the theme from before, Metropolis started with me getting back in the Warthog and driving past everything on the bridge, all the way until I got to the tunnel. Right before I needed to start fighting enemies, there was a convenient beam rifle for me. I used it to kill the first couple elites, then jumped up on a box to sneak attack the stealth elites. While doing this, I had to make sure to kill any new Jackal snipers that spawned. Once I killed a few more elites and cleared the area, I went back to my Warthog. With the Warthog, I drove through the area I had just cleared and kept driving so I could skip the area with like 50 respawning Jackal snipers. Thankfully, the Scarab's attempt to DOS me didn't work. At the next street, I was able to get a ghost and use it to close the gap on a Wraith. After I boarded it, I had to use all my plasma nades to blow it up because of course it was a white elite. With the Wraith, I blew up everything else. I had this amazing plan to board the Wraith while driving a ghost. This caused quite the loss of life because inside my Marines would not get out of the way. This was gonna be cinema. I did not give up on the dream. When the Scarab made it to the end of the river, I killed most of the elites with my beam rifle and then landed and killed the final one with my sword. The ghost was a bit too much of a porky to fit all the way inside the Scarab. That did not stop me from using it to kill the rest of the elites. At the beginning of the Arbiter with my active camo, I was able to backsmack a heretic elite for his gun, then use it to kill a grunt and get a needler. Because I had so many teammates, I didn't lack damage to pop energy shields, so I could solo the rest of the area with the carbine. On my way to the hangar, I got jump scared by an elite.
Greetings!
With some hiding and smart uses of invis, I got to the door controls unnoticed and hid until more allies arrived. Because there were enemy sentinels here, I could now start using the sentinel beam, which I swapped for a fuel rod right away. I wanted the fuel rod because it would help a lot with killing the elites. Its low ammo wasn't an issue because I knew the last elite would have a sword for me. Even though I couldn't use noob combo on any of the elites, the ones in these hallways and rooms were really easy to deal with. I could either camo and backsmack them, camo and stick them, or just stab them to death. And on one occasion, an elite died of a heart attack.
Dead.
To be honest, the grunts might have been the bigger threat, because I would always target the elites first, and then the grunts would light me up with their needlers. But as long as I headshot them fast enough, it wasn't really an issue. Also, if you don't know, you can bypass the whole section where you're fighting a phantom while looking for the heretic leader. Here, you just go fly to the exact building I did in the footage, then camo when you drop down and the level is over. When I started out the Oracle, I was pretty useless, since even though there were weapons right next to them, the infection forms that turned into combat forms didn't use guns, so I had to rely on my teammates to kill them. At the elevator, I ran out of combat form and hoped for the best. I think one of the sentinels shot his arm off because he dropped his plasma rifle. Also, because there were sentinels shooting at me, that meant I could pick up a sentinel beam off the floor. The combat forms in this area also had carbines and needlers. Because the needler and plasma rifle are not very good against the flood, I mainly used the carbine and sentinel beam. Anytime I shot at a flood that was climbing the walls, I used the carbine. It did pretty decent damage. Then anytime I needed to reload mid-fight or a flood got too close, I would burn him down with the sentinel beam. I will say, not being able to use the sword to quickly kill everything did make this section kind of drag.
One eternity later.
Once the elevator stopped, I made it to the room that also feels like it takes forever. In an effort to make it go by faster, I dropped down and tried to kill as much flood as I could. When more elites spawned, I stuck one of them, then let the flood clean up. With the carbine, I sat by the exit door and killed any flood that spawned until the door opened, and I tried to sneak by, but the heretics wouldn't move far enough away for the door to close. I just watched until the flood killed them. Something I forgot to mention is that one of the combat forms I killed in the room had a plasma pistol. This meant it took until mission 5 for me to have access to the noob combo. With that and nades, making my way to the heretic leader was easy. If you think I'm gonna do the trick that gives you invincibility for the rest of the level,
you're goddamn right.
After shooting down the support beams, I made a very big blunder. I dropped back down too early and had the same problem as when I did my foreign skull run of this game. Uncontrollable shaking and no gravity. This ugly shaking might have been funny the first time it happened to me, but I was not trying to deal with that again. So I restarted the level and did everything again. When I made it back, something big happened. While walking up the stairs, a combat form spawned with a sword. That made cutting the supports a lot faster. This time, I was more patient and waited for the right time to drop down. I'm not gonna lie, the rest of the level was pretty free. I walked past everything and spammed the heretic leader until he died. By the way, restarting made this level take almost an hour. The start of Delta Halo was pretty rough because I was getting shot at by turrets. I got a gun by running at a group of grunts, bashing one of their heads in with a rocket launcher, running for cover, then running back for his gun. The problem was, the plasma pistol on its own is pretty ineffective, so I decided the best course of action would be to run at a jackal sniper until I got lucky and killed him. Once I was finally able to kill him, I used his beam rifle to clean up the rest of the Covenant in the area and left before the dropships showed up. At the tower, I killed everything I saw with my beam rifle. 2 ghosts came out of the tower. I blew up the one with the white elite, and the other one handled itself. I did the tank section normally, so it wasn't hard. When it was over, I ran out of beam rifle ammo fast. Luckily, I'd gotten marine reinforcements, and they were actually very helpful. Then I saw something beautiful. 2 elites with carbines. Me and my marines bent them over, and I got a much needed precision weapon. I was not looking forward to the next section with all the jackal snipers and drones. Surprisingly, the jackal snipers were easy to handle, and only 1 spawn of drones showed up. This made this area relatively painless, which is out of the ordinary because I swear every time I play through this area, it feels like swarms of drones are spawning every 30 seconds. At the temple, the beam rifle made the fight with the honor guards a joke. Cause of weapon carryover, I had a pretty filthy loadout when I started Regret. I knew 2 elites were coming in, so I rushed to kill them right away. Then I started the super fun task of sniping all of the jackal snipers before they domed me. By the way, I am still impressed by how tanky white elites are. Even with all the annoyance of jackal snipers, so far the level wasn't that bad. I used my carbine on shield jackals and grunts, then used my beam rifle on any elites and any remaining jackal snipers. I don't know if it was because I hadn't played the game in a couple of days, but the 2 hunters were actually domesticating me for like 5 minutes. Turns out I didn't have to be fancy and shoot them in the back. Nade spam, then shooting them while backing up did the trick. After killing the Covenant on the opposing gondola, I thought the Marine that was with me died, but I caught him blinking, so obviously he was just playing dead. Most of my remaining beam rifle shots were spent on the wall behind a jackal. Inside the structure, I picked up a fuel rod. It was going to be helpful for the underwater portions of the level. To start, in the room with all the jackal snipers, drones, honor guards, and the 2 hunters, I just ran through. Then in the room with all the stealth elites and grunts, I used my fuel rod and carbine to clear everything. Once I killed the sword elite, I had a tough decision to make, fuel rod or sword. I chose to juggle them both to the elevator. I watched this sword like a hawk. I did not want it to glitch out of the elevator because it would not sit still for some reason. None of this was necessary because when I got out of the elevator, there was an honor guard I could freely backsmack for his sword. Outside, I did some pest control with the rest of my fuel rod shots, then some close quarter combat with the sword, and then left on the gondola. There was a small problem of me not having any good way to kill the banshees. I kinda had to just ignore them and hide. That ended when the second gondola pulled up. Fortunately, I was able to snipe the elites, kill the grunts, and avoid the banshee while doing it. Once I got in the final temple, I made sure to leave the room after a couple of hits on regret. I did this so I would have a checkpoint, making dying to a random sword elite less painful. After a couple more haymakers against the senior citizen, he died. Now is time for, believe it or not, my favorite level in all of Halo, Sacred Icon. I don't know what to say. Ever since I played the level when I was a young kid, it just stuck with me. Remember what I said in the intro about having to shoot the pillars to make this level possible? Turns out, I was wrong. Apparently, the first two open for you if you just wait long enough, and I totally forgot you can just melee them. I waited for some sentinels to spawn and then hit one with my gun until it died. That meant I was now able to use the sentinel beam. I mostly ran past everything until I got to the enforcer. There, I shot at the pillars, then activated the switch to one-shot him. While I'm riding this gondola, I think it's a good time to mention I didn't put any grenade restrictions on Arbiter, because I think that would just make the rules of this video even more complicated, and that's just too much for my small brain. When I got to the second enforcer, I used all my plasmas on him, then almost the rest of my sentinel beam. This put me in a bit of a sticky situation against the Flood. I had to focus down one of them, then take his pistol. With it, I needed to kill the rest of them without dying. Here I learned that the SMG is actually worthless against combat forms. The pistol was actually able to kill them, while the SMG shot out what felt like air. I mostly used the Sentinel Beam and the BR because for some reason, none of the Flood in the first section spawned with a shotgun that I could take. That was okay for now because the Sentinel Beam does a lot of damage to the Flood. But once I killed the Flood with a shotgun, things got really fun. Outside, the Flood started spawning with a large variety of guns. After a couple of waves, one Flood spawned with a sword. Now the shotgun is fun to fight the Flood with. The sword is just unfair. I think I genuinely forgot I was playing on Legendary for the rest of the waves until the dropship showed up. At the beginning of Quarantine Zone, I drove past everything, making sure to use the active camo tech as much as possible. Even at the part where I was supposed to get out, I squeezed through and kept driving. This came to an end when I was stopped by some boxes. I was in a bit of a predicament because I hadn't really fought anything, so there weren't any guns I could use. While I was trying to kill some Flood with my ghost, I got hijacked and somehow the combat form died and dropped his sword, which meant I could now use the sword I carried over from the last level. Using the sword, I killed the rest of the combat forms and used their guns on the sentinels. I kept trying to get in the tank in this area, but every time I got in and tried to blow up the ghosts attacking me, I swear the tank tickled them. Eventually, I just realized using the Ghost to drive past everything like before would be the much better strat. With the Ghost, I drove all the way to right before the gondola. This put me in another bad situation. The only ranged gun I had was the Sentinel Beam, and it quickly ran out of ammo, so I had to resort to using the Ghost. This took so long because of how tanky the combat forms are. Once I killed them, more spawned. My Ghost was not healthy enough to take them on. After trying to kill them for a bit, I saw my elite teammates show up. While they were distracting everything, I thought I could sneak in, but a Flood knocked over a box at the worst possible time. I was not very happy about this. Like, there's just no way! Having my teammates distract was definitely going to be the best way to get through this area. I went back to where they were and motivated them to participate. Things went a lot smoother this time. At this point, the level was basically over. I climbed up the gondola, chilled on my phone, and then camoed and walked to the end of the level.
How you doing?
Gravemind started out about how you would expect. Even though the challenge doesn't really affect this level, it's still Gravemind. Unfortunately, the most painful part of the level is the beginning when all you have is a needler. Once I got past that, it was a lot better. All the fights until the prison were pretty standard. All I did was spam the carbine at everything that moved. The thing about the prison is as long as you survive sticking the first 2 brutes, the rest of it isn't bad. All the enemies that spawn always path to your position. Knowing that, staying on one level and camping the grav lifts makes it really straightforward. I will say, story-wise, this part is dumb. I'm in the middle of trying to stop Truth from leaving with the Index. You know, the thing that lights the halo rings and causes the end of the galaxy. But no, let's take a pit stop to save 6 Marines that can barely 1v1 a grunt. I ran past the hunters blocking my way, then outside sniped all the jackals. After taking a hover bridge thing, I jumped up the wall and walked above the next couple areas. Before I could get down to progress, I needed to kill the jetpack elites. These guys were cooking me. The way to kill them was to throw as many grenades as possible. That way the beam rifle would 2-shot them instead of 3-shotting them, giving me enough time to kill them. At this point, most of the fights in the level I could just third party. And the only big fight that I couldn't really just spectate was outside, where I could safely snipe everything. Right before I entered the mausoleum, I blew up the hunters with my fuel rod that I had been saving. Then I went in and watched the fight. The hunters were the winners, so their reward was more fuel rod. Now all I had to do was kill the final wave of elites. This level is long and I could have gone into more detail, but you play this level with Covenant weapons anyway, regardless if you're doing a challenge or not. At the beginning of Uprising, my best weapons were no joke grenades and my fists. Using my camo, I could get into positions where I could backsmack or stick brutes. I did this until the final brute, and he was about to kill me, but I got saved by an elite teammate. There was not really a plan forming in my head for the next area. I tried to sneak by, but 2 brutes were in the way. I stuck one and ran away. With my shields back, I was able to smack the 2 jackals. And once again my elite locked in and he cleaned up the brutes. I used my last plasma nade clearing out the second room. At this point, the only usable guns I had were the brute plasma rifle, the plasma pistol, and the brute shot. The brute shot was the only one that could actually do any meaningful damage against the brutes. But it had very limited ammo. The next section was rough. First I had to deal with the jackals by only using melee and plasma rifle. Then I used some brute shot to take care of one of the brutes. This way I could backsmack the other one. There was still a group of brutes left below me. Thankfully they were all grouped up so I could do a lot of damage with the brute shot. This left 2 brutes. I camoed and backsmacked the one that wasn't berserking. Then dodged the other one long enough for my camo to come back so I could do the same thing again. In the next room I saw something beautiful. A brute with a carbine. I had gotten nades from the last couple enemies, so with them I killed enough brutes that I could grab the carbine. With it I wiped out all the brutes outside. By the end, I only had 1 shot left over. This didn't matter because here I could do a jump onto a tree, then another jump onto a cliff, and just like that, I was out of the map. The great thing about this is because of how far up the end trigger of the level goes, I could hit it from up on the mountains. I just needed to switch to classic graphics so I could see where I was going. When I started High Charity, something weird happened. A combat form wasn't damaging me.
I am invincible! Invincible! Ow!
After locking in, I killed the combat form and got his sword. I effectively used the sword to cut through all the combat forms. At the wide open area, I used a beam rifle to snipe all the drones out of the sky. Once they had killed the flood for me, of course. I knew opening this door would send a lot of combat forms after me, so I readied my plasma nades. I swear they malfunctioned and did no damage, but the sword definitely worked. In the next hallway, I did the same thing as with the drones. I let the Covenant and Flood fight, then finished off the winners with my sword. The Prophet's chambers were no different. I sat in the back watching everything fight. At the end of the bloodbath, a couple camo flood were left. Fortunately, my eyes functioned, so they caused no issue. In the final section, I jumped up the green energy tube, backed up to avoid dying to a brute, sniped a jackal, and then dropped down and finished the level. I will say this was basically the sword level. Doing this level with the Boring Skull rules was a lot more interesting. To start out the Great Journey, I did something I don't think I have ever done. I rode on the back of the Spectre and let the elite drive me around. This actually worked better than I thought it would. Artas would take the aggro most of the time, letting me shoot the ghosts for free. My driver even utilized cover. Being stubborn and wanting to do the whole section did make this take 10 minutes longer than it should have. But by the end, I had a full brute shot and a plasma rifle that I got from dead brutes. Inside, I used my brute shot to kill the brutes, but the hunters did most of the work. The next area was really annoying. The weapons I had available to me were not great at range. Luckily, there was a brute with a carbine. That meant that if I focused on him first and made sure he died, I could pick up a carbine of my own and make the rest of the section much easier. After taking out a Jackal sniper, I was able to pick up a beam rifle. At the prison, I freed the elites and hunters and watched them annihilate the brutes. Because I had used the Spectre as it was intended, I couldn't use it to duplicate Johnson and make the final fight go a lot faster. However, I could still use the Banshee. After waiting for the sergeant to open the door for me, I flew my Banshee in. I don't really have a technique for squeezing the Banshee through. I kinda just go off feeling. To get through the door, I had to get out then get back in because the door only opens for the player. Then I flew as fast as I could to the cutscene trigger before the brutes killed me. Now all I had to do was hold down left click until Mr. Mohawk died. Except, I died twice getting stuck by brute reinforcements. On my third attempt, I was able to handle the brute waves and finally kill him. This was a nice change of pace from doing Halo CE with only Covenant weapons. Even though I'm better at CE and Legendary on 2 is way harder, having more than 3 weapon options was a lot more enjoyable. This was still harder though, because even though the weapon options are so limited in CE, the plasma pistol there is so good at literally everything. Next up will be Halo 3, so if you want to see that when I post it, or you enjoyed the video, subscribing would mean a lot.